One of my most favorite things about being here is being able to go into storage and look through finding things that maybe I didn't expect. No matter how well you know the collections, you're almost always going to be surprised by something. Well, I really wanted to tell the story of the common people in the ancient Near East. Archaeology is very often about, or at least the archaeology that the public sees, is often about, let's call them the 1%, the elite, the kings, the queens, the wealthy burials, the temples, the palaces. Well, that's because those things leave behind the mark, really. If you're wealthy, you have a lot of objects. We find a lot of objects in the ground. And often they're the flashiest and the most impressive. So people like to hear about that. What they should like to hear about it, but they don't know enough about, are the more mundane objects. And I love that. How did these normal people live? It was the majority of the population, and yet we don't often hear much about them. And that's because they don't leave as much behind. So their houses might be smaller and less well preserved, and their objects might be more broken up. So looking at common tools or the objects that someone may have kept in their house in their personal shrines, or anything that they would use in their daily life, to me is fascinating. And that's the story I really wanted to tell, the 99%, if you will. All objects have hundreds of stories really in them. How they were made, how they were used, how they might have been lost and entered the archaeological record, how they were rediscovered. There's a lot more than that, of course, but this one I think in particular does what I like to do, and that is show something that seems fairly mundane. It looks just like a rock, but in fact it has amazing stories. So they made this, they ground it down so that it would weigh a certain amount. And then they inscribed it with the cuneiform to tell us. Now we can read still most of that inscription. We're not quite sure what was over here, but it's virtually certain that one portion of the last visible sign is that for Nafor. Nafor is the word abnu, which is stone or stone weight. So it's telling us it is a stone weight. And then there's the sign for 1/2, and then ma, na, gi, na. Mana, we often say mina, is a unit of measure in ancient Mesopotamia. It's 60 shekels of weight, each shekel about 8.4 grams. So 1 mina is right around 1 pound. It's somewhere around 470 to 520 grams. So that's roughly 1 pound. So this would have been half of a pound in weight. Now the gina means true or absolute. So this is 1/2 of a real mina, and it's been guaranteed. The line below it might have a sign for priest. We're not quite sure because it's broken off. But then there's the sign Dingyur, which is the star. It's a god, really. It means God. And then Utu, who's the god Shamash. He's the god of the sun. Now, the sun god sees everything. So he's also the god of justice, and is often conjured in economic contracts to say that he's guaranteeing, for instance, in this case, that this thing weighs 1/2 of a mina. Now, that's all well and good. It's great because you can weigh that and say, now I know what 1/2 a mina should be. But this one's been defaced, and that almost certainly says that someone checked this weight. Some sort of legal system was coming through and saying, we got to make sure that merchants are using the correct weights. And we know that this happened. Even the Code of Hammurabi has many things that talk about the use of false weights and the punishments for doing such thing. You're not supposed to cheat people, so you want to use real, true weights. This one didn't match up. So whoever it was said, you know what, that is not a true mina, you're lying. No one will use this weight again, and they would break it. Because no one would ever use this weight now, because they'd say, they can't weigh it right, it's got that big hole in it. So it speaks to economics, speaks to cheating in a way, and it speaks to checking to make sure people don't cheat. The legal systems in play to ensure proper weights.